Hey everybody, Mark Caples here from the Hard Knock University podcast. This episode is a remix. Halfway through season 1, I changed the way I edit these things and I started adding all the cutaway scenes and made it much more fun, much more enjoyable, a little more vulgar. You might not like it, you might love it. All I'm doing is I'm going back and I'm re-editing the first 4 episodes so that they match the rest of the feel, because I'm going to continue to do that with the rest of the podcast. So this is a remix episode of episode 2 with Johnny Buonadonna. I hope you enjoy it. In the meantime, be sure to go get the book, The Hard Knock School of Project Management, 7 Hard Lessons I Learned the Hard Way. You can pick your copy up on Amazon, or you can go to leadershipknocks.com. Get you an autographed copy. Also, be sure to sign up for my newsletter on Substack and follow the podcast and Leadership Knocks on all of the social medias and everywhere. Just follow me on everything. I'm trying to build this community and I need your help. All right, guys, enjoy the remix.
You have part of my attention. You have the minimum amount. The rest of my attention is back at the offices of Facebook, where my colleagues and I are doing things that no one in this room are intellectually or creatively capable of doing.
You sure about that? You sure about that? You sure about that?
Hi, everybody. You're listening to the Hard Knock University podcast. I'm Mark Caples. I'm Pickle Rick! In this episode, we're going to delve into Chapter 1 of the Hard Knock School of Project Management. We'll also explore a challenging project from my career, extracting 7 hard-learned lessons that apply universally to project management. Additionally, we'll review Trillion Dollar Coach by Eric Schmidt, discussing its relevance to project management leadership. And then the episode concludes with an interview from Johnny Buonadonna discussing his unique transition from crime fighting to project management. And of course, a fun hypothetical challenge for both Johnny and our listeners. Stay tuned.
Oh, hi, Mark. So why specifically project management and leadership?
Because that's what the book is about.
Why is the book about that?
It's a made-up tale.
7 sacred lessons from the School of Hard Knocks.
This one was invented by a writer.
I learned the hard way. Actually, it was a good learning experience.
It's a total fabrication. It never happened.
It's the Hard Knock University podcast, where real talk meets real lessons, and we all graduate with honors in the School of Life.
Wretched, isn't it?
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hard Knock University podcast. I'm Mark Caples. Before we dive into today's episode, let's take a quick moment to recap episode 1, Project Management 101. In our inaugural episode, we explored the fundamentals of project management. We started by defining what project management truly is, the art and science of turning ideas into reality through organized planning, execution, and control. We discussed the triple constraint, the balance between scope, time, and cost, and how adjusting one impacts the others. We talked about the role of a project manager, not just as a manager, but as a leader, negotiator, and a problem solver. We also introduced our Book of the Week segment.
Count of Monte Cristo
That's Christo, you dumb shit.
by Alexandre Dumas.
With Becoming Bulletproof by Evie Pomporis, discussing how learning to read people and influence situations can affect team dynamics and can significantly enhance project management outcomes. And remember, we're all about learning from hard knocks. Project management isn't just about avoiding mistakes. It's about learning from them to lead our project to success. So if you missed it, go check out episode 1 for a solid grounding in what it means to manage projects in the real world. And now let's get into today's adventure, where we'll navigate uncharted territories with lessons from my book, The Hard Knock School of Project Management. Stay tuned.
I have been stabbed, shot, poisoned, frozen, hung, electrocuted, and burned.
Oh, really?
And every morning I wake up without a scratch on me, not a dent in the fender. I am an immortal.
What a week. So let's kick it off with the geopolitical madness that's happening right now. Over the weekend, Trump apparently found out that Russia's been playing him like a fiddle during all these peace talks, and he's pissed, not mildly irritated. He's pissed. And it's not like let's circle back after lunch annoyed. I'm talking flip the table, hit the Twitter fingers levels of angry. It turns out Russia's been clowning U.S. delegates in these negotiations and making Trump look foolish. And for a guy who values loyalty over competence, that kind of truth takes a while to bubble up through the fog. But now that it has, he's going full scorched earth with like a brand new economic invention, secondary tariffs, whatever the hell that is. Moral of the story, global trade's about to get as expensive as a contractor's insurance policy in a hurricane season. I got my hands on a brand new Shure SM7DB microphone, and let me tell you, this thing is smoother than a project manager who actually reads the scope of work before demo day. I recorded a full unboxing video. We'll post that soon. So stay tuned on that, especially if you're an audio nerd or just like watching grown men geek out over gear. Meanwhile, I've been in the lab cooking. The remix episodes are in motion. I'm slicing and dicing season 1 into what you're watching now, and they're packed with the new hashtag Hard Knock lessons and new episodes of My Week. So think of them like remixes of your greatest hits. And bonus content, yeah, that's coming. Raw, real, behind the scenes stuff, a little more off the cuff, a little less polished, but full of grit. Also, we are deep into recording season 2 of the Hard Knock University podcast, and we're breaking down the project management styles and leadership styles of iconic movie villains. Dr. Evil, Thanos, the Joker, all the fun ones. The kind of folks who run their teams with an iron fist and a KPI spreadsheet, because you got to track KPIs. And what can we learn from them? You know, more than you would think. So stay locked in. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing? Hit the bell. Tell your team, tell your enemies, tell your mom. And we got more goodness and whole grain wheat coming next on the Hard Knock University podcast. All right, everybody, let's dive into chapter 1 of the Hard Knock School of Project Management, Navigating the Uncharted. I start every chapter with 2 quotes. One quote just wasn't enough for me, man. I'm an overachiever. I had to do 2 quotes. So the first quote for this one is from Sun Tzu. In the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. And then the second quote is from the Buddha. Chaos is inherent in all compounded things. Strive on with diligence. A tale of project management chaos. A few months into my new role as a PM for this fun new startup I had landed at, I found myself at the helm of a project riddled with red flags from the start. The homeowner was not only elderly, but there was a language barrier. Texas is essentially occupied Mexico. And while many of its residents, such as myself, are bilingual to at least some degree, many either only speak English or only speak Spanish. She had entrusted her affairs to a local woman who was the pastor of a fire and brimstone church. Our contract required each home to immediately be listed for sale upon substantial completion. So each homeowner had to be partnered with a realtor. This realtor, who lived across the street from the project, was convinced that with enough renovations, this dilapidated house could fetch top dollar. The house itself was beyond saving by conventional means. It should have been burned to the ground and rebuilt. Instead, we decided to level the foundation, all but gut it, and undertake a vast overhaul, expanding the kitchen, remodeling both bathrooms, as well as the laundry room, painting the entire interior, and laying down new flooring. On the outside, new siding, trim, doors, and a roof transformed its appearance. The project's cost escalated from an initial contract of $162,000 to a staggering $217,000, stretching from an expected 18 weeks to an exhausting 11 months. Despite my early warnings and attempts to abandon the contract to avoid what seemed like an inevitable financial sinkhole, my advice was ignored. The house was listed for $340,000, but after lingering on the market for 6 months, it sold for $289,000, a figure that didn't justify the investment or the ordeal. This project was not just about construction, it was about navigating through a landscape of human complexities, financial risks, and operational chaos, a true testament to the uncharted territories project managers often find themselves in. In the world of project management, every story has its lessons, and this particular renovation encapsulated the 7 harsh truths that no one tells you about project management. Number 1, you're always uncomfortable. From the outset, I was uneasy. An elderly homeowner, communication barriers due to language, and a power of attorney wielded by a local preacher who was certain the end is near. It was a recipe for discomfort. The red flags were waving vigorously, signaling that this project was stepping into uncharted waters where comfort was a luxury we couldn't afford. Number 2, you'll rarely have all the answers. The house was in such disrepair it screamed for demolition, not renovation. Yet here I was, tasked with a project where the answers seemed more like guesses. How do you justify expanding the scope to such an extent when the initial plan was already fraught with uncertainty? This project was a daily reminder that in project management, having all the answers is a myth. You learn as you go, often the hard way. Number 3, there's times you'll feel like the bad guy. When it became apparent that the original GC wasn't the right fit for the job, I wasn't just the project manager, I was the harbinger of bad news, advising that it was time to intentionally delay the project further by terminating the trade partner and replacing them with a new crew against the wishes of stakeholders, especially when those wishes are fueled by high hopes and personal gain, can make you feel like the villain in your own story. Yet this is part of the job, making those tough calls. Number 4. Most of your time is spent managing people, not tasks. My boss and his boss, the board and the investors in our little startup, the realtor, the local church leader with power of attorney, the elderly homeowner, and a team of contractors. Managing this mix was like conducting an orchestra where half the musicians were out of tune. The project's success hinged less on the tasks at hand and more on navigating the complex web of human expectations, motivations, and misunderstandings. Number 5, success often goes unnoticed, especially for the PM. After 11 months of relentless work, the house was transformed, but the celebration was muted. The project ran over time, over budget, and despite the sell, the financial outcome was less than stellar. My role in salvaging what could have been a total loss went largely unacknowledged. In project management, your victories are often seen only in the numbers, not in the narrative. Number 6, you're a translator for everyone and everything. I was translating not just the project's needs, but also cultural, linguistic, and emotional contexts. Explaining why a $162,000 job ballooned to $217,000, or why the market didn't respond as expected to a $340,000 listing was part of my daily grind. Being a project manager meant being a diplomat, a psychologist, an interpreter of language and syntax, and sometimes an interpreter of reality. Number 7, the best plans will still fall apart. The original plan for this project was to take 18 weeks, but it stretched to nearly a year. Every change order, every unexpected issue with the house's structure, every market shift, these were not just deviations, they were the project's new reality. The best laid plans in project management were merely starting points, not guarantees. The hard lessons. This project was a crucible that tested every principle of project management. It wasn't about following a clear path, it was about forging one through chaos. The journey was as much about handling the human elements as it was about the construction itself, pushing me to grow in ways I never anticipated. In the end, project management was not just about managing a project, it was about managing through adversity to achieve something that, despite the trials, stood as a testament to resilience and adaptation. Project management transcends the mere orchestration of tasks and timelines. It is fundamentally an odyssey of personal growth, resilience, and adaptation. Through the lens of managing projects fraught with unforeseen challenges and human complexities, project managers are sculpted into leaders who not only navigate the chaos of construction, but also grow through resilience and adversity, adapt to ever-changing conditions, and evolve in the capacity to lead, mentor, and inspire. This project illuminates that the true essence of project management lies in the ability to foster personal development, teaching us to embrace discomfort, manage the unmanageable, and transform failures into foundational lessons for future success. So that's chapter 1, navigating the uncharted. Man, I want to talk about these chapters a little after reading them, but you kind of just got to jump into chapter 2 because I pick up, the story and keep going with it. I don't want to start throwing spoilers out there this early in the game. But a quick recap of the chapter. I took the helm of a renovation project right here in Texas where there's language barriers.
Here, put these on. Don't cry in front of the Mexicans.
There was an elderly homeowner, wild church leader with power of attorney, and it really set the stage for a challenging journey. The house was in such bad shape. It should have just been rebuilt from scratch. But, we embarked on a massive overhaul. We gutted it, expanded it a little bit, and completely remade the place. There was a lot of change orders, and the budget got a little out of hand. The schedule went from 18 weeks to 11 months. And, I called it out early on. I was like, man, this is bad contract. It's a bad deal. We shouldn't be involved in this. It's fishy. Let's just get out. And they weren't having it. We weren't getting out of it. You know, sometimes you just got to play the cards you're dealt. And this was certainly an instance where I played the cards I was dealt and, didn't necessarily have a winning hand at the end of it all, but we got through it and I learned.
That's $500, Holmes. You in or out? 500. Must be a peach of a hand.
I learned lessons, 7 of them specifically. And we'll talk more about these lessons in depth and some other projects where I learned these lessons the hard way. But this particular project, certainly was a masterclass in navigating human complexities, financial risks, operational chaos. It wasn't just about renovating a house. It was about managing through adversity and learning resilience and understanding that in project management, you're often preparing for the next unexpected challenge because they just keep coming. All right, coming up, we got our interview with our guest and our book of the week. Stay tuned.
Flip the pages, take a peek. It's time to dive in every week. Hard knock, you got brains on fleek. Book of the week.
Okay, our book of the week is $1 Trillion Coach by Eric Schmidt, Jonathan Rosenberg, and Alan Eagle. The Leadership Playbook of Silicon Valley's Bill Campbell. I don't know if that's sometimes Zoom can really frustrate me. Look, it's a great book. It's not your run-of-the-mill leadership book. It's like a deep dive into how good coaching can really shake things up in teams and companies. So Bill Campbell, the guy at the heart of this book, had this philosophy where he wasn't about being the big boss. He was more about lifting everyone around him to do their best. He was all about coaching people to shine rather than just managing them. And that's a big one for us project managers, right? It's all about giving your team the space to grow, to come up with their own solutions, which often makes for some pretty resilient and creative projects. Trust was huge for him. He made sure everyone felt safe to throw out ideas or worries. In project management, that's like gold. If your team isn't scared to speak up, then you catch problems or opportunities way earlier, which can be game changing. Then there's this whole idea of team unity. Campbell was big on making sure everyone worked together, which for us means less friction, better teamwork, and projects that actually succeed because everyone's pulling together. His leadership style was about, fitting the coaching to the person, not just having one way for everyone. That's a lesson for project managers as well. You've got to adjust your approach based on who's in your team, because one size definitely does not fit all. And what I love is that the book isn't all talk. It gives you real tools that you can use, like these trip report meetings for keeping everyone on the same page. And that's something we can use in our projects to make sure that we're all aligned, no matter how wild things get. So in a nutshell, $1 Trillion Coach is like a roadmap for us project managers to really level up our teams, not just by getting the project done, but by developing our people. It's an eye-opener that leadership and project management isn't just about ticking boxes. It's about nurturing people who can knock those targets out of the park. So if you're aiming to do more than just manage your projects, if you want to lead your team to truly excel, this book could be your next read. $1 Trillion Coach, The Leadership Playbook of Silicon Valley's Bill Campbell by Eric Schmidt, Jonathan Rosenberg, and Alan Eagle. I told you guys I'm doing that 52 books in 52 weeks thing for 2025. I don't really do New Year's resolutions, but I have a friend, my buddy Bruce did this challenge once, and I see other people doing it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do it this year. You guys are going to hear about the books I read. I got 1 week coming up. All right, next week, what book are we going to do next week? Let's see. The chapter for my book, is going to be You're Always Uncomfortable. So we'll do Ben Horowitz, What You Do Is Who You Are, next week. That's the next book that I read. Following week, we'll start getting into verbal judo and Never Split the Difference, which I talk about in my book. Yeah. we'll get into those because that's some of the stuff from those two books. You know, they're not books on my reading list for this year, but like I've read Verbal Judo twice and I've read Never Split the Difference once, but both of those books, I use the tenets from those books on a daily basis. So we will certainly discuss those books coming up. But first, we're going to do Ben Horowitz, What You Do Is Who You Are. Talk about company culture and things like that. Okay. Next is my interview with Johnny Buonadonna. So stay tuned. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning back in. I'm here with my boy, the great and powerful Johnny Buonadonna from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Drinking some whiskey. I got the Larceny, mixed with a little Coke. What are you drinking?
Good old Four Roses.
Salute.
Cheers, homie.
So, Johnny, you started out as a law enforcement officer.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so, had to chase the old dreams of, high school dreams. Wanted to be a police officer.
So was that your, like, when people were like, what do you want to be when you grow up? It was a cop?
Yep, just wanted to be
man, I didn't know
a
that.
police officer. You know what I mean? Serve. I also knew, like, New Jersey police officers also retired with, 60-70% of salary and 100% medical. Not like that anymore, though. And New Jersey is one of the only places that did that. I learned, go to different states. It's not as lucrative being a police officer as it was in New Jersey.
So you did that fresh out of college. What's your college background?
Yeah, so I'm not really book smart. Hated college. Probably should have went to a trade school, but we're about the same age mark. What do they teach you in college, right? What do they teach you in high school? Go to college. Go to college. Go to college.
You don't want to be those guys swinging hammers.
No, but at 38 years old, I should have done a trade school. I should have learned a trade. I have ADD and not like the make-believe. I had like the whole like diagnosis, IEP, all that stuff.
So, but what did you study in college before you?
So I went to community college, got an associate's in criminal justice. And then I went to like a 4-year school, and then I got a degree in finance. I got a degree in finance because when I was in college, my mentor's like, John, you can be a cop with any kind of degree, but if you want to go federal, you really need that finance degree.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So
because the white crime, that white collar crime,
so that's what I
cooking the books. You got to figure out how.
Yeah. So, then you go to college, and then now I'm taking all these business courses and pivot tables and stuff that just didn't really interest me.
So then you go into law enforcement.
So yeah, I did college, got out of it. I was selling then building and landscape material and stuff. Just kind of lost because in New Jersey, it was right after we had like a lot of vets coming back from the war in Iraq, and they're doing veteran preference. So for me to even get hired, I have to pay $100 per test, and then I'm competing with all these veterans that have preference. And then even if I did get hired, they want you to have alternate route. So I would have had to pay $6,000 out of my pocket to take 6 months off to get certified. And it's not even guarantee I have a job. And then that certification is only good for like 2 or 3 years. And if you don't get hired as a full-time job, you'll lose it.
Wow.
Yeah. So where was it? So I finished college, 23. I'm just selling building landscape material. And then, my friends are starting to progress in their careers. And I was like, I gotta go for it. Gotta chase the dream. So then I'd start putting a bunch of applications in. Made it. Was going through with like Baltimore PD, Anne Arundel County, Maryland PD, and then Norfolk PD. I made it all the way down between Norfolk and Anne Arundel. Anne Arundel County is Eastern Shore, Maryland, and they were only hiring like 10 cops. Norfolk was hiring 35. So I was like, well, I think my chances are better going with Norfolk. Sure. So then I ended up going there. Did the whole application, interview, agility test, got hired, moved down to Norfolk, Virginia. Never left home before. Literally, I had my 2002 Honda Civic and a garbage bag worth of stuff, and I was renting a room. I ended up actually like failing out of the academy the first time around. Just like from the stress, being away from home, getting screamed at, like I just really wasn't functioning well.
So did you just have to repeat a semester?
Well, essentially I have to resign from the academy and reapply. So now I pack up, like even that, like I had a whole big party going away. Johnny's going to be a cop and all that happy horse crap. So then it's like, you got to resign. And it wasn't just me. It was like due to like the shooting. I like never really like was shooting firearms growing up and all that. So it's like the whole thing with drawing. And I didn't realize I'm also left eye dominant. So like normally if you're shooting with your right hand, you're shooting out of your right eye and everything lines up. I'm left eye dominant. So I had to actually physically learn to turn my head and cant the gun to line everything up. So just not enough time, just stress, being away from home, all that. So I had to pack up, move, tail between my legs, and then start over again. But now my place, the job I was at for like 5 or 6 years, they're like, yeah, John, like, we know you're going to be leaving. We don't really have work for you. And I was just working here and there. I ended up getting some landscaping gig just to fill in the time. And, now I'm going back and forth. Do I want to go back to the academy? Do I want to this? Eventually, the landscaping guy was like a real asshole. So I literally just like lost my cool, told him to go screw off, walked off the job.
As one does.
Dude, you know how it is with some of these guys in construction. They can be real assholes, like some of these owners.
Yeah, man, I came up in that old school generation of swinging hammers where, like, if you were walking, you're wrong. If you're not carrying the most amount of lumber on your shoulder that you could possibly carry before your knees buckle, you're wrong. You know what I mean? It was yes sir, no sir. And then, come 5 o'clock, when we were rolling up and cracking open the beers, it was different. But while we were working, everybody ran it like, a drill sergeant. It was bananas. And it wasn't unusual for your boss to just scream and yell and spit in your face. As I moved into starting my own company, the things were already starting to change, where I was already starting to experience some of I can't treat people the way that I was treated on jobs, because people just walk, they'll tell you to kick rocks and leave. And then, now here in the corporate world, that stuff doesn't fly at all.
No.
So where are we at in the story? You're doing landscaping while you're...
While I'm waiting for the academy to start. I got rehired back. Now I'm waiting for it to start and all that. So what actually ended up happening was I had a friend that owned a real estate brokerage in Philadelphia. And I ended up, this is like 2012, 2013. I ended up moving in with him and his wife that he just got married to, and I was working for him for $90 a day, just doing manual labor while I was waiting for the academy to begin. And then like I went to go and he's like, hey, I want you to stay with me. But I'm like, nah, dude, failed out of the academy, got to do that. So I go back to Virginia, do the academy, make it through, learn to shoot, do all this stuff. And then I had a pretty successful career of like 5 full years of being a police officer. And that's where I hit about like 31, 32. And I was starting to get homesick. It was no longer a good job or career to be a police officer. It wasn't like after 9/11 where they were heroes. It was like at the height of like Mike Brown, Freddie Gray. And I was just getting very cynical. It was just bad juju. Wasn't a good time to become a cop. So every single year, my friend that owned JG Real Estate is like, hey, want to come back work for me? I could use a good guy like you. I'm like, nah, I'm still running and gunning, living the cop life. So year 4, I started making the transition and I decided I was going to go back to, I think I wanted to move back closer to home. My parents were getting older. I had a brother that like passed away and overdosed. My dad was even like, John, we can't take you getting killed in the line of duty. So like all that stuff started resonating with me. And I was like, all right, I gotta make a change. And I'm still young enough, at 31, 32, that I can transition a career and maybe be successful. Because I've also known a lot of old cops that, they do 15 years and they leave the force or get fired or get kicked off. And then there's nothing left for them. It's a certain kind of skill set to be a police officer.
Yeah.
So I started burning my leave because I had a lot of sick time, a lot of vacation time. And once I hit my 5 year and I was going to get vested for a pension, I pieced out. I found a stray dog. You met her when you were over 40, on the mean streets of Norfolk. She was my little buddy and kind of took her, picked her up, moved to Philadelphia, bought a duplex, and just started figuring it out. From there, I really didn't have construction experience. I literally was just reading books on construction project management, listening to podcasts on construction management, just anything on like managing and like run it.
There's some early books.
Well, I think you even read it. Was it the unconventional project manager?
Yeah.
Something.
Project management for the unofficial project manager.
That's it. Yeah, did that. There was another podcast that was fantastic. And what happened was the guy stopped releasing them because he got over into the smart car. Like, I guess he got into like mobile charges or EV chargers, and he stopped doing the podcast. But his podcast was one of the best. And it kind of sucked because like I haven't been able to listen to it for 3 years and I forget what it was called. I really have to find it, but that was really good. So yeah, it was just a bunch of like that. And then, you know, I was given a job I was unqualified for. So now I'm managing construction jobs. And if you don't know what you're looking at, someone can say like, hey, this is really good. And you're like, oh, okay, that's what it looks like. But it's absolute crap. And then that's kind of what was happening. So like I went to go work for my friend. I lasted about 6 months. And he's like, John, like if it wasn't for your work ethic and how hard you work, I would have fired your ass. I'm going to send you to a friend that owns a construction company and you're going to work. And then from there, like I went to go work for my friend that owned Spartan Drywall. And dude, I'm with the amigos, have a tool belt on, framing, demoing, carrying in bulk lumber at 32. And, you know, I just used to joke around being like, I used to be a hero once. Okay. I used to be a hero.
You're still my hero.
I know. Yeah. It's the guy that gave me the job, my buddy Jared. And now I'm hitting the ground running. Just like the 6 months of swinging a hammer and just being in it, I just started figuring it out, making systems. There, I was like making SOPs for the guys and just started doing it till like I was about 2 years and I wanted a raise. And we kind of had a difference on like what my value was worth. And I was told that I'm not worth, what he say? He's like, you're not worth any more money to me. And that made me go ballistic. I pieced out in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I pieced out, and the guy I went for Spartan Drywall, I ended up working for him. So I was at like two years at JG. Then I was at Spartan Drywall, and Spartan Drywall was where I started doing a lot of commercial work and stuff and started running a drywall crew. And he was doing his own home renovations. Just in like the short like gamut of time in construction, I'm doing commercial, dealing with tenants, vetting subs, writing SOPs, finding like suppliers to use into the entire area and all that. And then now I'm doing that. I'm running Spartan Drywall. I actually took a hit. I took a pay increase, but then I gave away benefits, vacation, and all that. And I went to 1099. Yeah. So now I'm learning about like, I don't want to pay taxes. So I got to figure out what can I write off, mileage. You know, you own your own business. You don't want to pay taxes. So now I'm figuring out like how to write everything off. I was actually smart. So I kind of did the math and I knew that when I think I was getting weekly pay, I knew every month one paycheck would go into an account that I didn't touch for taxes. So when tax time came, I had the money, saved up and good to go. I did that for a while until
I didn't do that, and that is a lesson that I had to learn the hard way about the taxes. But that's a story for another day.
Yeah. Dude, you're not the only one. I know a lot of guys still on a payment plan for the old IRS. Yep. So I did that for a while until it got picked up by the old, where we met is the old Curbio, and it's where I spent it. Curbio is actually really what?
And we're going on almost 5 years there now.
Dude, I think I'm 3.5. Pushing some.
I started January 2020, so it's been 5 years. All right, so that's a good transition into the next part of this whole thing. So we're all about hard lessons learned the hard way. So tell me a story about a project that things didn't go right and you learned a hard lesson the hard way.
Yeah, actually, it was probably like in my junior career when I was with JG. I think I had to find a sub to do roof capping and caulking. And like, guy did the job and I went and just paid him. And then we go and look at it and it was absolute garbage. Like the metal, it's not clean bents. It's like dented all in there. The caulk, it's all like lumpy and like it doesn't have that clean thing. And I paid the guy in full and he never came back. And that's kind of where like Jared's like, John, you gotta learn what you're doing and like what you're looking at. Yeah. And then that actually, my friend that owned Spartan Drywall, Dom Trulove, he's like, he had like a very good lesson. He's like, John, you have to pretend when you work for someone, every dollar spent is your dollar. Do you want to be like pissing away your money or you're going to protect it? And that kind of just, always started like resonating with me because you see a lot of these subs like they see maybe like a big corporation like Kirby, or they see a big juicy, oh, they got the money, and it's like, it's easy to say they got the money, man, but like, if you're trying to steal, everyone else is trying to steal. It's about, integrity is doing the right thing when no one's watching, so it's about being honorable and, and all that stuff. But yeah, that's just where I learned. It's like
trust. Yeah. Well, we trust in the capabilities of our teams, but project milestones require verification. It just ensures that we're all on the same page. You got to verify.
Yeah. And a guy might say, hey, I'm done. And then you go there and it's like, bro, this ain't done. Gave you the scope of work. Like, yeah, it looks done in the photos, but when you get there, it ain't done.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times, I've gotten a picture from a contractor and it's like, it looks great, but you got like this part that is an area of concern kind of cropped out of your image. Can you get me a couple more pictures?
Man, now it's like, I want a video going slow and looking.
Rock and roll, man. All right. So now I got this little interactive challenge. We put it out to Facebook, the Book of Faces, and asked this question. If all you had was a truck and $100 to start with, how would you start a construction business?
No, we talked about this, and you had the best idea. Trash removal. See, me, I'm thinking about getting door hangers and trying to solicit business and then selling a job and getting a deposit and getting someone to do it. Meanwhile, you had the good idea. It's like easiest. It's like the easiest thing, because like the entry level for trash removal is you just need a pickup truck. Yeah, I can remove your trash for like $50, $100, manual labor, leaf removal, shoveling, just stuff you can do with your hands. It's unskilled.
Yeah. So we got a couple of responses on Facebook. Will Conwell said gutter cleaning or pressure washing, real low buy-in there.
Yeah.
And you can just kind of build up from there. Dwight Cox said he'd start out building birdhouses and selling those and work his way up to dog houses and then tree houses before he finally gets to building houses,
It all depends. What's your skill level? I wasn't really a handy guy. And, dude, like what? I'm year 7 in construction and everything literally just started clicking for me. Yeah. And I'm still not a handy guy, but like I've, you read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. Mm-hmm. I've assembled great teams that make me great. And it's all about your team. You can be the best leader. You can be like the best team, but if you're a terrible leader, your team's going to be terrible, Yeah,
100%. Frank says he would start as a sawyer. So doing like cedar removal and things like that, and chopping up lumber and selling the lumber, sawing that lumber down into planks and selling it. Gus Clark says get a weed whacker and a chainsaw and do landscaping and build that up. TJ Harrington had my idea. I got to agree with what he says here. He says start by junk hauling, then make a few checks to do some handyman work. Once I gain some capital, start quoting bigger jobs, then keep doing bigger jobs while subbing out other jobs. Once financially stable, I would 100% sub all work and just be a GC for commercial projects. Once I gain enough revenue, I would then transition into light industrial and government work. I would then retire and give the company to my kids while I run a few fishing boats in Mexico.
The only thing about that government work, man, is like net 60, net 90. I don't know. I like homeowner jobs, but you got to pick and choose.
And the government work can be difficult because a lot of contracts you just can't get. Well, I can't because they're mandated to be given to, a woman-owned business or a minority-owned business. So they have
get a partner that's a minority, man.
Yeah, that's the trick. Get some partners that are, minority.
Now all of a sudden you're a minority-owned business.
Yeah, and I imagine that's what a lot of them do. Well, rock and roll, man. So we talked about your journey from crime fighting to fighting with subcontractors about whether or not they're going to come back and finish their punch list.
I got good guys now too, man. It's kind of good when I have like people on Instagram and Facebook and like be like, or TikTok, be like, hey, can I come work for you? I'm like, maybe, because I have a lot of good guys. Like, and you were actually the one too that's like, Johnny, you got to like just like start using other people and see what happens. I'm like, I've just gotten so comfortable, like, and you're right, dude. I used some new guys on this one other job and other jobs. It didn't work well, but then it's like you get into the whole habits of like, oh, I forgot what it's like to have subs that you got to babysit and like nitpick. And it's like, but you pick and choose. Like, I know, like, this crew I'll use again. I won't ever use them on a permanent job because that's not their skill set, right? I should have used one of my other good jobs on a permanent job and then use them on a non-permanent where they get in, they get out, and they rock and roll because they were moving super fast. It's just like Now they're waiting for a plumber. Now they're waiting for an electrician and slowing them down.
Yeah. Knowing what job justifies trying a new crew out is key. There's certain times, you get a project and some of the stakeholders involved, have some personalities that, you just know you're going to need your A game on, you know what I mean? And you can't try new guys out on those. Yeah, certainly when you get, an unoccupied home or something and it's a small scope of work, if you got a new crew that you need to try, you need to try them, just to see, because it could turn into something great and you'll never know if you don't, All right, man, before I let you go, I wanted to tell you I got your Christmas card. Yeah, and you guys sent out like this newsletter, what you and your family is up to.
I don't send it out. The wife sends it out.
Yeah, and I didn't get it. My wife got it. But no, y'all said that y'all were doing the dates by the alphabet.
Dating.
And then y'all were on R. We jumped into that for A. We had a night in Austin together.
For that song by Shane Smith, Night in Austin. Good song.
There you go. For B, we went and visited some friends in Bastrop. And so maybe we're not doing this right with, just like using cities that are nearby.
Like legit, like it has to be an A, like art museum. B would be like bowling. But hey, like if you ain't cheating, you're trying. You're at least going on dates with the thing. So, but you're on C right now, you said?
That C's next. In the letter, y'all were on R. What do y'all got going on?
Dude, I think we closed it out. Forget where we're at, honestly. We're almost there. Maybe we're at like Z or X or something. You know what I mean? But dude, a lot of the things is like we were running out of ideas. I was going to ChatGPT, date ideas that begin with C, and we got some cool stuff with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, what can we give the old Mark? Date ideas that begin with C. Cooking class, camping, concert, coffee shop hop, a comedy show,
Those
cycling.
Great. Yeah.
Crafting. I can't imagine you crafting. Well, no, you're a carpenter. You love crafting. Charity work, chocolate tasting, cheese making, chess.
I'm not going to do cheese making. There were some really good ideas in that, though. I like that. I'll take it to the old lady.
Craft beer tasting, couple spa day, cocaine.
I don't know if the wife's going to be down for that one.
Yeah, I don't blame her.
All right, Johnny, I appreciate you taking the time. I look forward to doing this some more. Maybe we can do a few where you straight up co-host with me and it's not so much me just talking to myself in this room by myself.
Hey, man. Yeah. Dude, maybe we do a live one at the company meeting next week.
Yeah. We got that coming up. So certainly we can try to get some content. And then, of course, the trip to Vegas. Really looking forward to that.
That's going to be fun.
And if we can't drum up some content there, then we don't have any business doing a podcast. All right, man. It's been a blast. Thanks for joining us on the Hard Knock University. Later, brother.
Ta-ta, sir.
Welcome to the Knockback, you'll see. Mark's got the feedback, quick on his feet. Got your hard knock lessons in the mix. Brace yourself, his burns are slick.
Look, I know change can be scary. 1 minute, you're playing freeze tag out there at recess. Next thing you know, you're getting zits, your voice gets low, and every time your art teacher, Miss Scanlon, leans over your desk, you feel all squiggly inside. She was a striking woman. Not classically beautiful, but striking.
Hey, everybody, it's time for another round of the Knockback, where I take your questions, lap them with a little truth, and send them back stronger, better, and maybe just a little more sarcastic. All right, let's go. Question number 1. I just got promoted to project manager, but no one on my team respects me. What should I do? Ooh, man. Ouch. First off, congrats on the title, but let me break it to you, dude. A title doesn't earn you respect. Competence does. If your team sees you flailing around like a cat in a bathtub, they're not going to follow you in the next phase of construction, much less the next meeting. Here's the hashtag hard knock lesson. Respect isn't assigned. It's audited daily. Show up prepared, communicate clearly, and own your mistakes louder than your wins. Question number 2. How do I get my contractor to stop ghosting me mid-project? Ah, yes, the classic Houdini contractor. 1 minute they're demoing your kitchen, the next minute they're gone like a politician's promises. Here's your fix. Stop relying on handshake agreements. Get that scope in writing with milestones, timelines, and payment tied to actual deliverables. And if they still disappear, fire fast, not emotional. Here's your hashtag hard knock lesson. If your contractor communicates in disappearing acts, it's time to stop clapping for the magic show and hire a pro who shows up. Question 3, is it micromanaging to check in with my team every day? No. Checking in is leadership. Hovering is micromanagement. If you're asking about progress or obstacles and how you can support, that's leadership. If you're asking for hourly updates on which tile they're laying or why the drywall guy took a lunch break, then yeah, you're the problem. Hashtag hard knock lesson. Daily check-ins build trust. Daily interrogations build resentment. Know the line and stay on the leadership side of it. So if you've got questions, I've got war stories and whiteboard markers. Send your knockbacks to leadershipknocks.com or hit me up on Instagram, X, LinkedIn, send some smoke signals, whatever you got. And remember, just because the lesson was hard doesn't mean it wasn't worth learning. Hard knocks, big laughs, epic wins. That's us. Keep pushing and stay tuned. We got more coming up on the Hard Knock University podcast.
First time I ever saw tan lines. Hey, one last thing. And I want everyone's eyes on me when I say this. Look at me.
Okay, wow. We covered a lot of ground on the Hard Knock University podcast tonight. We've navigated through some uncharted territories with that wild renovation story, unpacked some hard-earned lessons, and even dipped into the wisdom of the $1 trillion coach. Next week, we're going to review What You Do Is Who You Are by Ben Horowitz. We'll dive into chapter 2 of the Hard Knock School of Project Management. You're always uncomfortable. This is when we finally start getting into the lessons. Lesson number 1 is you're always uncomfortable. We'll talk about that. And then we'll interview my buddy Todd. Todd Roth is a musician, a blues musician, and an expert luthier artist, and he makes custom guitars and also does repairs and setups and stuff, but, to pay the bills. But we're going to talk to him about how being a self-employed musician is much like running a business, amongst other things. We'll ask him what he learned the hard way as well. I hope that you're walking away today with not just insights, but also a little bit of motivation. Just remember, guys, every project, no matter how tough, is a chance to learn, grow, and maybe even laugh a little about the absurdity of it all. The heart of project management, as we've seen, is not just in planning or the execution. It's in the people we work with and the obstacles that we overcome. It's the small victories that we celebrate along the way. Whether you're dealing with language barriers, managing expectations, or just trying to keep a project on track, you're part of something bigger. You're shaping the future one project at a time. I want to leave you with this thought. Every hard knock is an opportunity to become bulletproof. Each challenge is a chance to not just manage projects, but to lead with resilience, to coach your team through the storms, and to come out on the other side stronger, wiser, and more connected. Thanks for joining me on this journey through the Hard Knock University. Keep those questions coming, share your stories, and let's keep learning together and build this community. Until next time, stay curious, stay resilient, and remember, in the world of project management, biggest successes often come from overcoming the hardest knocks. Good night, everybody.